Great. Well, welcome to Rad Futures, David Boyer. I'd like to welcome you to the show. You've never been here before. This is the first time that we're speaking. Um, you are, for the listeners and the watchers, a contributor to a website, a brand new website called borrowersoffense.org. And
Correct.
you are concerned primarily with veterans and student loan debt. So
Yes.
I would like to ask, as far as your background is concerned, what branch of the military were you in or are you in?
Navy.
Oh, here we go. Okay,
I
Navy.
was
Let's do that.
I was in
Sorry.
the Navy because the Navy has more aircraft, more jets, more everything. And I was on three different aircraft carriers, the America, the Kennedy, and when the Roosevelt came out brand new, we took it out for a spin, and did a lot of workups just to test out the new carrier.
Okay, cool. What was your MOS exactly?
Aircrew survival. It started off basically with parachutes, survival gear, equipment. Um, and there's the other side of the people we work with. It's called AME, Aviation Mechanic Egress. And they also share and do more things with ejection seats. Um, so all our, and we also had small arms, something called CADs, cartridge activated devices that are small explosives. Then from there, when I was in the military, things got a little bit more out of control. But for the most part, my main job was trying to get a people to survive a crippled aircraft or something going terribly wrong.
Okay, that's interesting. Did you have any ma major events happen, or did you have to respond to anything like that, or?
Nobody really had a punch out when I was with my squadron. We did a lot from there. I went to Key West, Florida for search and rescue, where I took care of more gear. We had more types of small explosives and CADs going on, and got into something called ASF. It's an alternative security force, but we also were taught more about explosives, IEDs, and things like that, as part of a secondary, security for the base.
Yeah. And did you do active? Were you active the entire time you were in, or were you partially reservist, or?
No, I was active the entire time.
Okay. And what was your tenure? How many years did you do?
I did very close to 8.
Okay. So that's a good stretch.
Mhm.
What was your rank when you exited?
Unfortunately, my MOS was 125% overmanned,
Okay.
E6 level and up.
Easton.
So once you hit E4, you would never ever put on another stripe.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if you aced the test; they'd just say, "Well, you cheated. Here, take another test." And if you aced that one, they'd give you another test. So what we call we would like the E4, the term E4 mafia, that we had all these people that are stuck in approaching the 8 year. You would hit high time and rank,
Mhm.
and you'd be kicked out anyway,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't your fault at all.
Okay. Interesting. Do
Just
you,
people refuse to retire or get out.
yeah. Do you ever miss it? Do you ever miss being in?
Oh yes, quite a bit. There's a lot of the stuff that's in your head you can't get out of your head.
Mhm.
So still, like I'm eating meals 7 to 8 minutes. I'm eating a full meal.
Yeah.
Um, then I still fold my clothes like I did in boot camp.
Sure.
There's all sorts of stuff that is stuck in your head. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of triggers that you don't realize until they happen.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's an interesting culture. It's a very interesting culture.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one of community. I think I was
Yes.
yeah, in my understanding it can be difficult to leave actually because, when you exit, you kind of lose that community to some extent, not always. I mean, people stay in touch and stuff like that, but yeah, it's interesting, it
Well,
becomes like family.
98%. 98% of the people in the military, when they get out, have to start over from scratch.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, even our corpsmen, we love our corpsmen. That the corpsmen get out, they can't even be a nurse. They can't even be hardly anything. They have to go to nursing school.
yeah,
You know, if Maverick off of Top Gun was true, a real person, when he got done flying his F-14 or his F-18, when he got out of the military, he wasn't even allowed to fly a Cessna. He would have to go get a civilian pilot's license because
yeah.
in the military he's a operator, not a we call, yes, they're a pilot, but they're considered like operators or so. So the only thing that works getting out from the military is some security and some higher intel stuff. Everybody else starts over from scratch.
Yeah.
So, that's where people want to go to college or, do stuff. And there's multiple traps to get caught into.
Okay, so thank you for breaking the ice on that conversation. So now, turning our gaze to that topic. So I got in contact with you because I saw your change.org petition. And
Mm-hmm.
for people who are interested in that, you can go to change.org and see David's petition, which is called Restore Veterans Futures. So the petition basically, you know, uh, says that vets who served, who went to school, who got degrees, right? These are full-fledged degrees. These are like 4-year degrees, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're varying degrees from arts to sciences and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So veterans who served their time, like David, who served their active duty or their reservist duty, exited the military, used the GI Bill to go to
Right.
college, got their degrees, um, but we're working, when you're in the military and you're exiting the military, you're in constant contact with people at the Veterans Administration, the VA,
And we trusted them.
and you trusted them. And so I guess I contacted you because I thought this was really interesting. Obviously, my interest lately, research wise, and sort of on my channel has been the student loan debt crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So this speaks to that. And so these people who were exiting the military went and got degrees, but received advice and counsel from the VA about what schools to attend, right? And
Correct.
some of the schools, you're saying in your petition, were for profit and scam. You call them scam schools.
They are scam schools.
I don't mean to do quotes to lessen your argument. It's just I remember it being called scam, and I know that there are institutions who would take offense to that. So that is what you are saying that they are, and that they effectively, the VA and these academic institutions effectively stole veterans' GI Bill money by pushing predatory student loans and
Mm-hmm.
without any guarantee of gainful employment, which is really, really important for people to understand. Um, and so veterans were largely left out of borrowers' defense. You feel that you've been collectively abandoned by the VA, and you are requesting meetings with the VA secretary to address the issue and get full rectification. Does that kind of summarize it, I guess?
It does. You're a little bit out of sequence. So you have to realize all the branches of the military that the for-profit schools were so prevalent and so powerful that they had people on the inside in active duty rank that was also working for the for-profit schools. So you had people that were in what we call PSD personnel, exiting instructors that were taking and stealing our information. So they knew when we were getting out or what we were doing, and they sent them to the for-profit schools. So the instant you got out, all these for-profit schools had all of our information.
Okay.
So, and this was in all of the branches of the military. The DoD knew about it. Nobody did anything about it. I believe in time that they did for people who had contact with all of our information, they made it a little bit more transparent, so maybe they could catch some of this. But for millions of us, it didn't matter that you get out and it literally the next day you're out of the military, you start getting 6 to 14 calls a day. Hey, we're this school. Hey, come, we got a campus event. Hey, we're really, really interested in you.
Mhm.
Hey, and so they just literally drive you nuts.
Mhm.
And so you eventually you're going to say yes to somebody, especially if they have a lot of commercials on TV or if you be looking them up a little bit on the internet and you think it's a good school. The problem is that's where actually it's where the problem starts. The DoD had active duty recruiters in active duty ranks stealing our stuff, all of our information. And if you call the VA, that doesn't matter when you call the VA, it doesn't matter what school it is. They're going to say it's the world's greatest school.
Mhm.
So, and at this time, there was, are you familiar with the 90-10 rule?
With, I'm sorry, what?
Are you familiar with the 90-10 rule?
90-10 rule, no.
Okay, so here's how 90-10 works. For every one veteran that the for-profit school scam, they get money for 9 more students, regular
Okay.
students. They get federal funds. So that instantly makes the veteran a huge target to scam that veteran because I get money for 9 more people and I also get the veteran. The
Okay.
veterans, all the money's guaranteed. Um, and in my instance, I have a bachelor's degree in electronic engineering. Nobody signs up for I see a lot of the public argument. Oh, you signed up for gender studies, or you signed up for, the Art Institute of so and so. Yeah, that's why you don't get a job. No, nobody signed up for stupid stuff. I was top three in my class. I designed all sorts of cool stuff. So, 4 days after I graduate with my beautiful bachelor's degree in electronic engineering in my DD 214, I think I'm going to go around and I'm going to crush the world.
Yeah.
And people told me to leave the interviews. They pointed at the door. They wadded up or tore up my resumes. And finally, nobody explained, hey, what's going on? And finally, somebody that I ran into said, okay, you have to agree that this interview is over. And I said, okay, I agree this interview is over. They said, okay, now legally, I can talk to you. They
Mm.
said, your degree is from a school that's not recognized. You will never, ever get a job from that school. And then I said, well, the VA said it was a great school. And they said the VA approves everything.
Mm.
So when you saw like things like Sweet versus Cardona, Sweet versus DeVos,
Hmm.
or, the 151 borrowers defense schools,
Yeah.
151 schools, DeVry, Corinth, um, ITT, Argosy,
Sure.
Nix. There's 151 identified fraudulent schools, and they're all VA approved.
Yeah.
I can't find a school that's not VA approved. I even saw a school where a dog got a degree, and it was VA approved.
Yeah.
It's literally that bad because what happened, especially in my situation, you call the VA, they say the school's good. You go to a campus event, they show you, hey, for this degree, you're going to start off at $55,000 a year. And at this point, we're talking 1994. You're going to start off at $55,000 a year. Expected growth within a couple of years, you should be up around 60,000, maybe a little more. At your 20-year mark, you're going to be hitting 72 to $75,000. You're going to just crush it. You're going to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
But and that was from the Department of Labor. So what would happen was the school would call the Department of Labor and say, hey, write this down that our students are going to do this, that, and the other. And we have 98 or 99% job placement.
Mhm.
We are the backbone of the industry. And, the Department of Labor, all these people would just print it. Nobody bothered to get off their rear end to validate the data.
Yeah.
So you have so the school says all this stuff, then they hold up all sorts of things from the government that says the same thing. but the government failed us because they never validated the data until like a decade later or something. Then it's too late. They don't go backwards in relief or discharges. And so, especially in our case, nobody before 2005 ever got a dime back. And
Yeah.
since we're veterans, we can't get borrower's defense because there's no provision to give back a GI Bill.
Mm.
So you
Okay.
can't get your GI Bill back. And also, these schools were very smart on setting you up that they, and it's part of the scam, 2/3 to 3/4 of your way through the school, they will burn up your GI Bill. Your costs will be higher, or something's going to come up. You're going to lose your GI Bill.
Mm.
So at that point, they push you into a predatory loan.
Hmm.
Um, so and then the loans will be Sally Mae, Navia, Mohila, Lake.
Sure.
It will be a main person,
Yeah.
but it won't be just a straight loan of X amount of money. My loan for about $35,000 was chopped into 11 little bitty loans so they could eat me alive on administrative fees
That's
and
right.
other issues.
That's what they do. And that's something
Then
that's not talked about very often, but thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
and behind that, after they get done chopping you up into little pieces, these loans are FFELP loans, even though they're backed and guaranteed by the government, the Department of Education. When it comes to like relief or a discharge of trying to get any money back from this, you can't because they're Sally Mae or Navient. They're like a private FFELP, even though they were backed by
Right.
government.
Yeah.
So the veteran was the number one target, number one scammed, number one used, number one abused, then abandoned because you
Which
can't
is
get nothing back.
which is particularly egregious in its immorality, in my opinion. I
Mhm.
think it's an immoral system, it's a predatory system, and it preys on vulnerable people.
Yes,
And as we know, the military actively recruits people from specific demographics.
yes, they
Um,
do.
yeah. So, one of the biggest selling points as a military recruiter is to use the GI Bill to get people to sign that dotted line. I was being actively recruited in 2001 and I decided not to do it, but that was one of the main selling points for me.
There's
And
actually an NPR special done by NPR, and this is about 20 years ago, that would recruit from very, very poor areas.
hmm
The whole idea behind recruiting from very, very poor areas, number one, everybody loved recruiting people out of the Midwest. We know how to shoot, we know how to hunt, we know how to fire firearms, we know everything about guns. So, they loved us, but they would also hit other poor areas like inner city. So the whole idea was, as a military person, when you first go to boot camp, they want everybody to have the GI Bill. If you're going to use it or not, they want everybody to have it.
yeah,
So it's $100 a month for the first year, $1,200. You buy into the GI Bill. Then each branch is slightly different, that you might have to do 6 years or 8 years. So you don't have to do weekly drills or a monthly drill
hmm
for your service. But they know only 7 to 8% of all these people out of these rural areas will ever use their GI Bill
right,
because they know they don't have the resources to live on and go to school at the same time.
right.
So they get all this money in, but they're not putting, they're putting 90, less than 94 or 5% or something like that in their pocket. Then they know that these kids can't get out and go to school.
hmm
So it's a one-way investment, and it's really wrong. They're using marginalized groups to pad their pockets. Then the other groups that do manage to go to school, there's setups waiting for them. Even for like vocational tech schools, there's still setups, Perkins grants, scams, and things going on.
I mean, I have several members in my family who enlisted, mostly Marines, one Air Force, and yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are in the Army. So, I mean, I know firsthand that this is one of the biggest reasons why people tend to sign on. It's not just because they want the discipline, because I think that's a good selling point too. You know, we need a military,
Mhm.
we need good soldiers, we need a strong military. I love our military. I think all of our branches are fantastic. We have high tech like gadgets and stuff that they're using that nobody
Uh-oh.
else on the planet can copy or, compromise. And I love our military. So I'm a huge fan. I just think that some things need to change, we need, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, obviously, because this is an issue when we look at, I wrote some things down and I am gonna kind of go over some of them because I was looking at your change.org petition and I began thinking of all my friends who have enlisted and thinking of my brothers and thinking of, what some of the people I know have had to endure. I know someone who
Hmm.
did several tours in Afghanistan and has severe PTSD. When you sign on that dotted line, it's a commitment, but it's also a sacrifice, and you don't really know what that sacrifice is going to be until you get from point A to point B, and sometimes it's a zigzag. So, um, you know, veterans sacrifice many things, I think, that the civilian population does not understand. But like I said, we have post-combat PTSD issues. We have coping challenges once they exit, right? Once military members exit, um, loss of limbs, hearing and vision issues, disabilities that are, permanent, that they can't, you can't go back in time and unenlist, right? um,
Right.
so and then when they exit, there's employment challenges, and then, I guess the reason I wanted to talk to you is because on top of this mountain of sacrifice that members of the military willingly enter into, but there are some things that do happen along the course of the way that probably a lot of people don't bargain for, um, but they're willing to endure it because they love their country and they did sign on that dotted line and they are proud to be part of the military community and they do want to continue, supporting their country and being a soldier. So, on top of the mountain of things that I feel are sacrificed, um, for our service members, then you add on to that all of this egregiously immoral kind of like debt, this predatory debt, these predatory
Hmm.
loans. Um, and a lot of, obviously, as you know, I'm sure if you're online ever at all, one of the biggest arguments against cancellation of all student loans is that, well, you took them out. If you took out the loan, you need to pay it back, right? It's cut and dry.
Right.
Um,
But it's not cut and dry.
no, it's not.
No.
And not a lot of people educate themselves on the issue. So I'm very happy to talk to you and get this perspective. And I think, there are probably a lot of other people who would benefit from hearing your perspective as well. So if you don't mind me asking, so I think one of the most interesting things you said was that you graduated with a bachelor's in what was it? I'm sorry,
Electronic engineering.
electronic engineering, which is obviously a science degree. This is something that is highly marketable, but not, I guess there's there's the fantasy that the academy gives you, right? Which is get this degree, take all these classes, pay all these loans, get the degree, you exit and you get a job, and you're going to be expecting to make, 55,000 out the gate.
Hmm.
Um, and then gradually, increasing year by year, which is a fantasy because it never, maybe it does work out for some people like that, but for I think the majority of people, that doesn't always happen. And it really depends on a lot of different factors, like where you're living. Are you able to afford relocation if you need to relocate? Because not every employer is going to relocate you, right? Um, so I don't know. There's all kinds of things to kind of take into consideration. Um, but yeah, I thought that was a good point that you made. And one of the arguments that the lending lobby and their cronies and their bots on Twitter like to say often is that humanities degrees are worthless. You shouldn't have spent your loans on a dumb humanities degree, right? Which irritates me to no end because A, we need humanities degrees. Thank you very much. We actually do. Um, and B, uh, there are many more people with science degrees, medical degrees, six figures. The doctors
Hmm.
who don't match exit without matching. If they don't match, they exit medical school six figures in debt. And if they don't match,
Hmm.
they can't become a doctor. And people don't get that. So it's like, it's very complicated. And this lending system, I think, is predatory. It preys on vulnerable people. But
It's very predatory.
yeah. And then one of the other things I was thinking as I was thinking about your petition is, you know, back in the Roman Empire, right? If you were a soldier, and you enlisted in the military and you were part of any kind of campaigns or whatever, upon exiting, right, it depends where in the empire you were, I guess, under Augustus, things were a little nicer, but if you exited after 25 years of service, you would get a full grant of land with a farm, and there was like an actual tangible reward there for the soldiers who risked their lives and went out and did whatever they needed to do. And they would also give them money. They would give them a substantial amount of money upon exiting. So, um, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we need to treat our service men and women better. And this is one issue that needs more attention because of the unique sort of nature of student loan debt. I think that, it is unique in that it has been exempted from bankruptcy protections. Um,
Hmm.
so veterans get shafted that way as well. I just feel like you guys are kind of extra, there's a little bit more extra going on,
There's extra penalties for us that the world doesn't know about.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's sad to me. What else would you like to say about that? I don't know.
Number one, out of all these issues, the Air Force is really good about um, vetting their own schools, and their people go to school mostly on active duty.
Mm.
But they vet their schools. So in all this mess with all these screwed over veterans, very few of them will be Air Force. It will be everybody else pretty much but the Air Force. The next thing everybody needs to know, our degrees don't help us. So when you get out of the military, you use your GI Bill at one of these bad schools, even though they're all VA approved, a great deal of HR organizations, major companies and sub companies don't recognize your degree, or that they recognize a degree, but it came from that school.
Mm,
Do your quotations, air
sure.
quotes.
Yeah.
It came from that school, so you will never ever get a job. So you're paying on very high debt on minimum wage if you can get even a credit minimum wage job or a couple of them.
Right.
And it took me a little over 16 years to claw my way up to zero
Mm.
because you're devastated that hard. You lost your GI Bill, you have a big predatory loan, and
Yeah.
you're pretty much going to be working your rear end off for 16, 17 years just to get back to zero.
Right.
Now it's too late. I can't go back to school. Everything's been robbed. And the stats that the world doesn't know that we try to put out is for all these homeless veterans, 20% of them have full degrees.
Yeah, that's
because
crazy.
these homeless veterans got stuck like I did, but I got lucky. I had enough resources and stuff to not be homeless. But 20% of homeless veterans have full degrees. Another 10% on top of that have some college. That the system failed them to the point they went homeless. Then there's, of course, there's drugs and everything else going on because they're covering up their PTSD and their stress and all this other stuff that's been piled onto them. Um, so there's a lot of that going on. But every 4 years, or time we have an administration change, we have to start over from scratch, trying to talk to congressmen and people, try to get some traction, get our foot in the door, and we just keep getting rejected and rejected. We reach out to veterans that are in office and they just ignore us.
And
You know,
have any of these organizations done anything for you guys? American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, National Association for Black
well,
Veterans?
yes, they've done a lot for us. They have totally blocked us from talking to the Secretary of Education, to the Veterans Secretary, Mr. Collins. He talks to VSOs. He won't talk to one of us. That's the whole
What?
point of my change.org. And I don't know why, but the VSOs get just millions of dollars of grants for suicide prevention and all this stuff, but they will not let us get to him and they won't help us. They're actually actively blocking us in several different ways. We've reached out to almost every VSO we can think about. And when we say VSO, Veterans Service Officer, we're not talking like your common state level. We're talking like Veterans of Foreign Wars, DAV, all the big guys. But these people are set up to get all sorts of grants from the VA for suicide prevention and everything else. But the suicides, regardless of how much money they throw at the VSOs, on my level, I don't see VSOs running around with bullhorns saying, don't do suicide or, where's this money going? There's no transparency. But unfortunately, Mr. Collins seems to be only talking to VSOs. So if the VSOs don't talk to us and Mr. Collins only talks to VSOs, we are effectively blocked off from getting um, any help whatsoever.
You're in a liminal space. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Um, yeah. I would hope that that changes.
But we restart every 4 years with a different person and we do this and nothing happens and we restart again and again. And that's why we feel that we're abandoned because nobody has showed us anything otherwise.
It's really interesting. Yeah. I am of the belief, this is a completely unscientific belief. It's not based on any kind of fact whatsoever. So please don't quote me as saying as such. However, my intuition tells me that the lending lobby, the lenders themselves, are probably spending a pretty penny on, you know, different things. Um,
Well, that's something that we need to talk about real quick. So there's a lot of horrible things going on that the public doesn't see. First of all, the Department of Education pretty much watched all this happen to everybody, but nobody intervened. Nobody, out of all the 151 schools that are all proven fraudulent, no CEO or CFO ever got prosecuted. They keep saying, well, it's just too difficult to prosecute them. Well, when I was going to my school, and the bad guy over my school was named Kevin Muldaney. Kevin Muldaney made millions and millions in bonuses. He got to keep them. Meanwhile, besides the veterans being a top target, um, marginalized group like single black women, they're big targets. So all these people who were given all these hopes and praises of pulling themselves out of debt and poverty pay for their own poverty. And then they get stuck into a loan for 16 to 20 something years. Or
right,
sometimes they can't get out.
right.
Um, okay, so besides us getting cheated and not allowed to get anything back, and you can't get your GI Bill back, we also have people that are using us, and that's putting salt into somebody's wound. It's horrible. There's a woman named Delia Ramirez, District 3, Illinois. She wrote a scam legislation called HR 1767 that's supposed to help us, but it doesn't. It doesn't do anything for about anybody, past, present, or future.
Mm.
Um, it just uses veterans for her own political gain. She doubled, since that didn't get down the pipe way she wanted it to. She doubled over on HR 1391. Again, it's using veterans without helping them, but the language is very similar to her original one. President Biden, a couple years ago, got rid of the 90-10 rule because it made veterans great big targets to be scammed.
Mm.
Now, Representative Owens is coming out with a new version of the 90-10 rule that will kill veterans. It will put them on the street. It'll make them targets again. So, and it's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. There's people on both sides who are actively hammering and profiting off the demise of veterans.
Right.
Um, so I can't point finger. I can point fingers. I know exactly who's doing what and where. If you go to borrowersoffense.org, there's a veteran section. It has all the players, the local players. But all this started a long time ago with a really good movie from Dan Rather.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Rather had this movie that he worked on with other people called Failed State. If you watch the movie Failed State, it will show you the players of how they changed rules and laws and just started profiting off of students and veterans left and right.
Okay.
And it's really a horrible system, but there's nobody to help us. We are working on one person right now that seems to be veteran friendly, but we haven't got anything off the ground yet. We're desperately trying. Now, the Mr. Collins, Doug Collins, our new VA secretary, immediately piped up with this idea that we lose 17 veterans a day. That's absolute nonsense. Mm-hmm. The real number is about 44 every day.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's 44 every day is because there's a couple of our states that don't report veteran suicide. There's also a lot of situations where law enforcement, especially local law enforcement, knows this veteran and it's a bad situation. So they try to put a positive spin on it or make it look like it's not suicide. So maybe the family can get some money or some kind of closure so they don't get cheated out as with the veteran. Mm. The other reason is, that it's 44 every day. People who get pushed to these breaking points of stress on their marriage and financially, and they can't get a break and they try to reach out and they just keep getting hosed over left and right.
Yeah.
Our terminology is they will hit the only tree in 200 miles on the interstate. They will just manage to hit that tree dead zero with their car. Then again, it's not rolled to suicide, but honestly, the daily number is 44. It's not this fantasy or illusion of 17 or 22. Mm. And I will die on this hill. I will tell you that that's the number.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, things need to change. And I'm very sorry that your cohort has been taken advantage of by that politician and other politicians like her. Mm-hmm. It's very disappointing to know mm-hmm. that people like that are serving in political positions within our country's government.
A great deal. We have congressmen and other senators that are getting paid by the non-for-profits. Virginia Fox is a great big one. She doesn't even try to hide it. She's getting paid by for-profit schools left and right, and she's getting paid to hurt marginalized groups. She's getting paid to hurt, single moms, just everybody. And, people don't see us up in their ivory towers.
No, because it's a class issue. And I really want to drive that point home, the one thing that all of us are united by is class. So, yeah, I am very sorry that this has happened to you, and I would be very interested in talking to other people that you know.
I know a lot of people.
Yeah, anyone else too who's watching this, if you're watching this program and you're listening and you want to get in touch with me and you have a story to share, please by all means email me at radfuturesnow@gmail.com. Um, yeah, I am very honored to have had this time to speak with you, and I look forward to the work that the Borrower's Offense website does. I hope that it's successful. I hope that more politicians start taking note of the way that our veterans, our service members who have sacrificed so much of their lives, are being treated in this way. They're being fleeced like many of the other people
Mhm.
who are also student loan borrowers. But as I said, I think the situation is a little different because of the nature of the sacrifice. So I thank you for coming on my show. I look forward to hopefully talking with you again in the future and hearing good news. Um, and yeah, just keep me posted. And
So I want to thank you for the opportunity. The world needs to know that we're not getting taken care of, that the GI Bill is not free school or free college.
right,
You know, if you're a college student, congratulations. I hope everything works for you.
yeah,
But you didn't have to go through basic training. You didn't get exposed, radiated, poisoned, PTSD,
right.
low dead bodies. I had a carrier blow up on me. The USS America actually blew up, and we were dead in water for 3 days. That wasn't anything good. Um, versus, the regular student that, you don't realize how good you have it.
Yeah, yeah.
And for the people that are trying to pull themselves out of poverty by joining the military, then getting scammed on top of that
Hmm.
is just horribly wrong. Hopefully,
Egregiously. Yeah,
karma will find all these people and
yeah,
just have fun with them.
yeah.
That's all.
I agree.
Um,
And I was going to say that as well. I was going to say, karma is very real. And I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. Karma will find you. God will find you. God sees everything. That's
yes, I
all.
totally agree.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you again. And keep me posted. I hope to hear some good news sometime
I will
soon.
send multiple people your direction. I hope you
Yeah.
have lots of interviews. We need to get this out there
Okay.
so the illusion of what's going on with veterans, the public can truly see what's happening.
Yeah. My whole PhD, like all my field work was interviews with law enforcement and military and stuff like that. So yeah, I love talking to you guys. It's super fun. So thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.